Hello, very own. Tonight's episode is a slow, relaxed dive into Minecraft facts, hidden mechanics, and little details that make the game feel bigger than it looks at first glance. So settle in, get comfortable, and let's take our time exploring a world that has kept players curious for years. Minecraft has always had a strange kind of magic to it. At first glance, it looks simple: blocks, tools, mobs, and survival. But the longer you play, the more you realize how much is happening underneath the surface. Every biome, every creature, and every item seems to hide some small detail that changes the way you see the game. That is part of what gives Minecraft such staying power. A lot of players remember the early days of the game, when everything felt rougher around the edges. The visuals were different, the mechanics were less polished, and some of the most iconic features had not even been fully formed yet. Over time, the game changed piece by piece until it became the giant sandbox people know today. Some of those changes were about balance, some were about style, and some were simply about making the game feel more complete. One thing that has always helped Minecraft stay interesting is the way it mixes familiarity with surprise. You can play for years and still run into a mechanic you never noticed before. Maybe it is a mob behavior you did not know existed. Maybe it is a block interaction that seems almost too specific to matter. Or maybe it is one of those small facts that makes you stop and think, wait, the game actually does that? Animals in Minecraft are a good example of this. They may look straightforward, but many of them behave in ways that are more specific than players realize. Some animals respond to food, some change depending on their environment, and some have special traits that make them different from others of the same type. Even a creature that seems ordinary can have a hidden layer of personality once you look closely enough. The same goes for mobs. Some of the game's creatures have changed dramatically since their earliest versions. Their designs, behaviors, and roles in the game were not always what they are now. In some cases, the final version is much more iconic than the original idea ever was. In other cases, the early concept was so unusual that it is hard to imagine the game without. The newer version, that is one of the reasons Minecraft has such a strong identity. It is a game that never really sits still. It grows, changes, and reshapes itself while still keeping the core feeling that made players care about it in the first place. The result is a world that feels old and new at the same time. Some of the most interesting details in Minecraft are the ones tied to movement and survival. Travel can change completely depending on what blocks or items you use. A simple choice of block under your feet can affect how fast you move, how safely you land, or how easily you build a route from one place to another. That means even basic movement becomes a kind of strategy if you pay attention. Fall damage is another small mechanic that ends up mattering a lot more than people expect. Different blocks can soften a landing in different ways, and that means players who know the game well can often survive situations that would look dangerous to someone else. In Minecraft, a tiny bit of knowledge can completely change the outcome of a fall, a fight, or a risky journey. Then there are the rare features, the kind of things that players hear about long before they ever see them. Some world generation details are so uncommon that finding them feels almost surreal. Others are technically possible but so unusual that many players go their entire lives without encountering them naturally. Those rare moments help make the world feel alive. Because the game always seems capable of surprising you, the deeper systems in Minecraft are part of what makes it such a strong sandbox. Fuel efficiency, crafting outcomes, item durability, and enchantment behavior all shape how players approach the game. You can play casually and ignore most of that. Or you can learn it slowly over time and start seeing the game as a giant machine with hundreds of moving pieces. Either way, the experience feels rewarding. That is also why Minecraft content works so well in long-form audio. The game itself is made of calm routines, small discoveries, and steady progression. It is easy to listen to while relaxing because the subject matter naturally supports that rhythm. You can talk about one mechanic, then smoothly move into another, and the whole thing still feels connected. There is also something comforting about revisiting old game knowledge. Even when players already know a lot, Hearing a familiar fact presented in a new way can make it feel fresh again. That is especially true with a game as widely played as Minecraft, where every player brings their own memories and habits to the experience. One person thinks of survival worlds. Another thinks of creative builds. Another remembers playing with friends late at night. The same game becomes a different story for everyone, and that is really what makes Minecraft special. It is not just about blocks or mobs or crafting recipes. It is about the way all those pieces come together to create a world that feels open, personal, and endlessly reusable. You can return to it after months or years away and still feel like there is more to learn as the episode goes on. The focus stays on those little details that are easy to overlook. Maybe it is the way certain creatures react to danger. Maybe it is the way some materials outperform others in unexpected ways. Maybe it is the tiny design choices that make an object feel more memorable than it should. Minecraft is full of those choices, and that is why it keeps rewarding attention. You also notice, after a while, how much of the game's charm comes from contrast. A peaceful village can sit not far from dangerous caves. A cute animal can have a behavior that is oddly practical. A simple block can become part of a highly efficient build. A basic item can turn out to be surprisingly useful in the right situation. The more you learn, the more the world starts to feel layered. That layered design is why players spend so much time experimenting. They test things, break things, rebuild things, and try to understand why the game behaves the way it does. Sometimes the answer is obvious. Other times the reason is just strange enough to become part of the fun. Minecraft does not always explain itself clearly, and that mystery is part of its appeal. Another reason the game stays relevant is that it supports both creativity and knowledge. A player who knows very little can still enjoy the experience. But a player who learns the mechanics starts to see new possibilities everywhere. Better routes, faster farms, safer builds, smarter survival choices. Every bit of knowledge opens the world a little further. That is why a calm, fact-based podcast works so well for Minecraft. It matches the pace of the game. You are not just rushing through action. You are noticing things. You are listening for small differences. You are letting the details land one by one. That style gives the subject room to breathe. So, as we continue, keep in mind that Minecraft is full of these small discoveries. Some are practical. Some are surprising. Some are just entertaining. But together, they build the feeling that the game is bigger than any single player can fully master. That feeling is a big part of why it has lasted so long. The world of Minecraft keeps inviting curiosity. Every update adds more to explore. Every generation of players finds its own favorite quirks. Every world feels slightly different from the last. And every time you think you have seen everything, the game reminds you that there is still something else waiting somewhere, just out of sight. That is the kind of atmosphere this podcast is meant to capture. Slow, steady, and full of little discoveries. A place where facts do not just sit on the page but unfold naturally as you listen. A world where even a simple mechanic can become interesting when you stop long enough to notice it. And that brings us to the heart of the episode. Minecraft is not memorable because it is complicated in the usual sense. It is memorable because it keeps layering simple ideas into something much richer. It turns ordinary blocks into tools, landscapes, systems, and stories. It turns small facts into lasting memories. And it keeps giving players reasons to come back, so stay with me as we keep moving through more of those details, one after another, in a way that feels easy to follow and calm to hear. The more you listen, the more the game opens up. And that is what makes a Minecraft podcast like this work so well.